Do you call that a non-compliance, or is that a grey area? What?
At some point, somebody is going to get a big fine, £10,000 a socket.
It's the inconsistencies which is the issue, right?
You know, blissful ignorance is not a defence.
You've just scared me off there.
I will spend a couple of minutes downloading another app.
I have an awful lot on my phone, and I try desperately not to use them.
And then suddenly the bank statement drops through and it's like, how much?
You know you're going to have to do it at some point and go back and do a retrofit.
And that's just not detailed in the regulations.
I think there's a lot of non-compliance.
People just want something easy.
This should be your bedtime reading.
Yeah, I disagree with that.
A year ago, new regulations came into play designed to improve the charging experience at public charge points like this. But what's actually happened? Well, looking at this one, by now I would have expected to see a payment terminal, a clear indication of what I'm going to pay. Perhaps a telephone helpline I could get access if I was having problems. Well, what's actually happened is the power of this charger has mysteriously been downgraded from 50 kilowatts to 43. Is that a ruse to get around the regulations? Well, to find out, we've assembled a panel of experts in the field of EV charging who can supply all of the kit to help make this Chargepoint compliant. Let's find out what they're saying, but also put in your feedback about your experience of public charging, especially over the last year. Has it improved as a result of these regulations, or did you even know about them in the first place? I guess to start with, what do the public Chargepoint regulations 2023 actually require?
It's a chunky guideline. You have to comply with it, and there are some hefty fines in place. I don't actually believe any fines have been issued on the back of it yet.
Come out in 2023. There's been no fines because there isn't a problem.
I don't think that's the case. I think there's a lot of non-compliance, which is a mixture of a lack of education. They're not aware of it. It's not being publicised enough. And secondly, there are those people who know all about it and are purposely chancing their arm because they don't think it's being enforced.
What is the biggest thing that I should be complying with?
Contactless payments. Anything over 8 kilowatts that's publicly available should have a contactless reader on it. An RFID card or a QR code on its own is not allowed. No downloading an app. It should be as seamless and as frictionless as possible. Just tap your card, that's you starters.
What actually makes it a publicly accessible charger? So if I put some in the yard out here, does that make me a Chargepoint operator?
Well, we've all been reading the guidance, and there are some fluffy areas where it's not quite clear cut.
Does a commercial premises that allows visitors into their workplace, does that fall within the regulations? Like you said, we've read through the document and we don't know. So how do the installers of these know that?
Staff will quite often in the workplace charge for free, and then there'll be a visitor rate. Where does that sit in the regulations then? Because if you're offering it for free, you're not actually advertising it on the likes of ZapMap or even Tap Electric's network. So it's a workplace charging network purely for staff, but you've now got a tariff for visitors. So there's so many different grey areas here based on just having a tariff alone, let alone the access and the visibility side. And that's just not detailed in the regulations.
I think the contactless payment piece isn't fully understood, and that is leading to non-compliance. Some of that is deliberate without a shadow of a doubt, but I think a lot of it is due to poor education.
These regulations are retrospective as well. Does it apply to all existing chargers that are over 8 kilowatts?
No, it only applies to chargers that are 50 kilowatts or more. You have to go back and retrofit them. So that's pretty much all the DC stuff. But what we're talking about here really is the AC bit in the middle. Anything over 8 kilowatts or more, you had a year to get your house in order, and now you have to be installing the contactless payment.
With that, big fines and things like that, is that putting people off putting chargers in?
You know, if you've got a 22 kilowatt AC wall box, £500 or £600 cost. What the regulation's doing now is you're effectively doubling that cost if you want to put a contactless payment on each charger.
Who gets fined? Is it the actual client or is it the Chargepoint operator that's managing the service?
The definition in the guidance is that the installer should give advice, but the installer is not at fault. It's whoever is operating the site. So if it was a pub owner, I own my own pub, I've installed my own chargers, I've put them on Tap Electric, I'm essentially running them. The liability is mine. If I've rented my car parking spaces out to one of the big CPOs, then it's their responsibility, not mine.
It is the regulations, but I do think if you make the right solution, then it's the same sort of workflow as people have always done with filling up with fuel. So you're trying to make things easier for them.
And that's a key point as well, because the idea being with contactless payment or with cashless payment is you can pay with what's in your wallet. So whether that be your phone or whether it be a card from your actual physical wallet, but you give people payment choice. And that then sort of plays into the regulations as well, where the requirement is not to have to sign up or subscribe to a service or preload a card with cash that just sits in an app somewhere on your phone or on a device. But the ability to use your card or use your Apple Pay, your Google Pay or whatever. Then that sort of transfers then over to the pricing transparency. For charges that don't have a main screen on them, putting a payment terminal on that has a large readable screen on it where you can transmit that data to the customer, giving that transparency is important as well, along with the payment choice. With the apps as well, there's about 130, maybe 140 plus different apps that you can use, and I have an awful lot on my phone, and I try desperately not to use them. So I will favour going to a charging hub when I'm on the motorway where I know they've got a good contactless payment system, and preferably one of ours.
Now, we say about pricing, there's a few round here that you've passed them on the motorway, you can see the charging price and really get up there, so you know even before you've left the road, it's a bit like the petrol. Would you call that a non-compliance, or is that a grey area?
You know, the regulation says you've got to clearly display the price that the driver is going to pay, and then the price can't change once you've started your session. So I think that's crystal clear that people want the visibility, they want to know what they're tapping for. I think the only issue that I've had as an EV driver is sometimes with contactless payment, it's great, but trying to get a receipt after it, especially if you're a business driver, trying to get a VAT receipt can be problematic.
It should be a bit like the underground, isn't it? The tap in and tap out. You can always go online and get your receipt just based on your credit card number.
But you've still got to go online and do it. What we're trying to do is make it a frictionless experience.
It's the inconsistencies which is the issue, right? You'll go to one public network and it'll be a completely different process to the last one you went to, and then the last one before that. What you see on the sign, what you see on the terminal, what you see on the charger is all completely different. The whole point of having these regulations in place is there is consistency. The process should not change. That's the whole reason why we have these regulations in place. But it feels like that's not the case. I think we've all been to public sites where we've had to do something completely different.
I definitely think on pricing, because I've got some, there's like, you'll see 39 pence, but there's a tiny asterisk to it, which you don't really see when you first pull up, and then it's like, if you've downloaded the app, and then you start the charging, and suddenly the bank statement drops through, and it's like, how much? I wouldn't have stayed for an hour.
There's nothing in the regulation that say you can't have different pricing for different methods of payment. CPO will gladly ask you to download their app because, of course, they're getting data capture, they're getting customer acquisition, email addresses and phone numbers that they can start marketing to. So that's important to them.
The supermarkets, if you haven't got a club card, for example,
right,
you're paying over the odds, and it's something we are used to, and I'm fine with that. It's just having that visibility over what the price is. What's the saving if I do download an app? I'm saving 5 to 10p per kilowatt. I will spend a couple of minutes downloading another app.
Obviously, the telephone helpline's in there. Who mans the telephone helpline?
So we have a 24/7 support helpline as well, which again is clearly outlined in the regulations, and that's a free helpline for drivers to contact us.
Actually, many people use it.
Yeah, I can vouch that for sure. We do get drivers calling us, as you would expect, at all hours of the day. If they're using the app, they can use some of our AI kind of FAQs. You know, cable stuck in the car, can't start a session, usual kind of stuff that we can answer in the app. If they've used the contactless and they need our help, of course, they can call us and they can actually speak to us, and we'll resolve that over the phone.
Now, comes to terminals. I deal with you for terminals, or do I deal with TAP?
Always the first line support would come through the platform, through TAP. If they were having a particular issue, then we would become the second and third line. And of course, we would then probably contract with an installer to be able to either go out to the terminal if it needs to. But one of the great things about these things is they are IoT, so we can actually see the problem before the customer can see it. We can log on to the terminal, fix anything over the air, and send the messaging clear.
In the early days, we never installed a SIM card straight out of the box. So installers are putting in their own SIM service, whatever provider they decided to choose, O2, Vodafone, EE. If that network failed, then the charger ultimately failed. Whereas now we've just gone to our own SIM provider, which just points and connects to the strongest network.
What it shows is that we as the industry and providers to the industries, we're actually being proactive in trying to fix these things. We're all EV drivers and we're all frustrated with what we find. So collectively we get together and we said, okay, how can we make this different for us, selfishly, but then it becomes a consumer thing.
How aware would you say end users are when you go and approach them about this payment issue?
They're not aware of these Chargepoint regulations. It's on the Chargepoint operators, the manufacturers, and or the installers to kind of push this across, saying, look, you need this, otherwise, ultimately, you're the guys that will be fined from it. And whether or not that is a standalone payment pillar or put the unit directly onto the front of the unit, so it's just user accessibility. It's super simple. Swipe and off they go.
Obviously, a lot of these systems now report into somewhere like a Zap map or some of the cars, so you can see before you get there whether chargers are available or not. Is that something that has to happen?
That's one of the wouldn't it be nice if. My car itself tells me the best place to go. It works it out for me, so I'm quite happy with that. But it's not part of the regulations to actually put yourself onto these maps.
But where's the car getting that information? Does the car get the information from you?
It's a good question. I mean, I can only really speak from how we display our public network on our app. We kind of adopt a similar model to like the Airbnb model where they display their pricing and availability on the map. So from a driver's perspective, when they download Tap Electric, Electric and they look at our map, we'll just show straight away, here's all of the available chargers in your area. You can filter it by charger speed. And also, if somebody is plugged in or it's unavailable, we display that straight away. In terms of feeding it into the car, I think it's largely dependent on the OEM. Where are they getting their data source from that feeds into the vehicle? Google, in most cases, is pretty common in most cars.
I've got a charger installed. It's been in for years. How easy is it to actually add a payment terminal?
Well, I think that depends where you put it. The regulation says that it's got to be within a reasonable distance. It's got to be accessible. If you were paying for parking, as an example, you'd walk to a pay station. So it's got to be something like that. Actually fixing a terminal to an existing charger, if you're going to bolt it to it, you've got issues with IP, the certification, where you're going to get the power from. That might be a bit of an issue. So we would always suggest if you're going to retrofit, you should do it in a standalone. So either a pedestal or the wall-mounted version that we have. That's an easy way to go back and retrofit.
So long as you marry the payment terminal's serial number with those connector IDs in that back office platform, you're taking payments within 10 minutes.
And I don't know if I want to talk about price.
For a kiosk like that, it's $349, and then you choose whichever terminal you want. We've got a fantastic Newland U2000 in there, really nice, clear, sharp screen. What's nice about a solution like this is in the back of there, you've got a very wideband 4G antenna that's anti-vandal. You've also got the power source in there, and you also have the space in there so you can add other things on the DIN rail inside.
How many credit card payment terminals would you install for how many units you've got? We've seen it. We've got a bay of chargers, maybe 5 or 6 twin posts. Someone's just stuck in a single standalone payment pillar at the end. The charge point that's nearest it is the only one that's getting used by credit or debit. All the others are just stuck in their own ways, RFID or QR code.
The reason why it's probably not being used is because there's very poor signage.
Agreed.
And that comes down to the CPO. It's the same as when you go to park your car in a car park. There's a big sign saying pay here. And that's what's missing.
You're parked at Bay 1 and the payment post is over at Bay 12. Predominantly raining in this country, the last thing you want to do is walk all the way up to that payment post, maybe tripping over other people's cables to get to it. It needs to be in a position well signed so that it's open for all.
But then if you want to talk about compliance, actually some of our clients, they only want to have one terminal. They actually don't want the drivers to use it. They want them on the app, as you said, for the capture of the data. So they want to comply with the regulation. Let's put that 100 yards over there and let's try and dissuade you from using it.
What's the best piece of advice you would give somebody who's going to start rolling out charging, even on a small scale?
Do the research into the Chargepoint manufacturer. So that 99% reliability is black and white. There's no getting around that one. It's probably the most cemented regulation in that guidelines.
Some people don't realise with the regulation is the reporting. Very, very in-depth, and you have to report it to actually demonstrate that you are complying. Your uptime is at the level that you are saying. You've got to feed that back into government.
You've just scared me off there. Now.
We can provide all of that kind of session data through the reports, through your particular location for all of your charges, all of your sessions, everything like that on a monthly basis.
Is that the problem at the minute? The government's not actually asking for the report.
The general view is that there's not as much enforcement happening as we'd ideally like there to be.
Someone's government debt is a pile of spreadsheets building up, isn't it?
Probably, yeah.
Sending them in and nobody's looking at them.
I think a lot of the CPOs are using that reporting data and are actually displaying it themselves, which is a good thing. That it's taking pride of place on their website. Look at our uptime. Our uptime's really good. We're compliant. It's allowing those who maybe weren't so good in the past to monitor what they're doing and take action. 97%. Why? We should be 99.
Transition as well for people making a move to EV. In the early days, I'm not ready to go EV yet. None of the chargers are working at the site I go to. By now, broadcasting it on these CPO Chargepoint operators' websites, 99 point whatever it may be % uptime. You've got that peace of mind. If you go to X place, the charger's going to be working. You can plug in and away you go. You don't need to worry about your journey as much.
So if there's ever any problem with the payment device, we can push that back into the platform as part of the reporting and the uptime as well. So we'll make sure that these things are running as reliably as we possibly can.
Further to that, we can feed that into whoever's responsible for that particular site. If there's a charger offline alert, a terminal offline alert, if there's a facilities manager, a fleet manager who's on site managing those, then naturally they'll be alerted.
So who's doing that maintenance actually? I'm just trying to spot a business opportunity here. It is based on uptime. So it's in my interest to get that charger back up. Who typically does that?
Each installation's different. So quite a lot of the regional charge point operators or installers might include a maintenance package. If they don't, for whatever reason, Tap Electrics or one of the charge point operators 24/7 driver support say, look, it's an issue that can't be rectified over the air, they go to that second or third level of driver support, whether or not it's self-service technology and or ratio, and then we could push that out to our installers installer network, say, look, you're in this area, we need someone to get there ASAP in order to rectify it and fix it.
A good example of that is one of the larger rapid charger service companies operates 4 SLAs. So they have a bronze entry level, that's a 10-day SLA. Might affect you 99% uptime. The silver is 5 days, the gold is 2 days, and then if you want the same day is platinum, which is scandalously expensive, but they're there within 4 hours. Those services are out there. They tend to be performed by third parties. I'd say 48 hours is probably where you want to be aiming at, giving the drivers confidence as well.
But it's not just driver confidence, it's also CPO confidence, because of course, charger down, payment system down, revenue loss. For me personally, I will actively avoid CPOs that I know have problems.
If it shows red on the dashboard,
Totally.
it's like just somehow.
No, I'm not
If
going
there's
there.
one out, there could be
Yes.
there could be loads out.
Yeah, we've all got our favourite service station and
We do.
service stations we avoid.
All down to food. Future changes you'd like to see in the regulations?
Be a bit clearer.
Yeah.
Get rid of the fluffy, ambiguous areas.
The clarity for commercial workplace charging. If you have a visitor who can freely access your car park and can then initiate a charge, is that a public charge point session or not? The other thing I'd like them to see, I'd like them to change the guidance, to amend the regulation to move the 8 kilowatt limit up. I think 11 kilowatt 3-phase should not fall under it. Anything 25 or higher needs to have the contactless payment.
See, I disagree with that. Purely because I see it not just as a regulation, and I've seen it firsthand. You're improving the user journey, making it easier for the user. A lot of people have grown up filling up with petrol, diesel. You drive up, you tap your card, you fill up, you drive away. And what we've designed here is exactly the same. The only difference is you sat there a little bit longer. People just want something easy.
From a driver perspective, again, I would say a good percentage of modern EV cars now don't even have a physical key, app-based, to control the vehicle, charge the vehicle. If you've gone into that particular dealership, you bought a car, you've linked your app to it, you're going to be pretty okay with using an app in the first place, right? So at some point, you're then going to come across a charger that doesn't have a terminal. What do you do in that scenario? You're going to have to use the app. So it is really a driver choice. I think they're choosing to go down the easier route, not that they can't do it. They've used an app to get there in the first place.
You say choice, and that's the whole key. That's the key thing. It's payment choice. You might be somebody that is adverse to apps. I am. I prefer to have the ability to actually either flash my card or use my Apple Pay.
If I've planned a day out and I've assumed when I get there I can charge, I'd like to know and almost think I can actually do that.
Goes back to that consistency thing that I mentioned earlier, though, isn't it? You shouldn't have to really think about where you're going, what you need to do to when you get there to pay for your session. You should know you're going to have the option when you get there to do one or the other, and it'll work. That's what we're looking for. And at the moment, that's just not in place.
I think it's the capital cost. Think about a sports club that's not for profit. If you're doubling the cost on the equipment, is a big deal.
If you've got 3 chargers in there and you put a single payment device in, you spread the cost of that device across them, then it's very palatable.
Maybe that's where the regulation should be then. Maybe it should be on number of charges rather than the power. Maybe if it's under 3 then, or under 2, perhaps, you don't need it.
From a payment perspective, I think the regulations right now fit what we need and what the actual market does need for consumer payment. The only thing I would say is there's a little bit of woolliness around contactless payment. A contactless payment can be a dumb terminal you just simply tap a card on. But because of the other regulations, such as the banking regulations, PSD2, which is the Payment Services Directive, it does require that after a certain number of taps of your card or a certain value has been surpassed on your card payments for that day, that you need to put a PIN code in. And right now it's not clear. Some EV charge points that I've been to, only on a couple of occasions, using the card, I have to use a PIN, and I haven't got the ability to put that in, so I have to go and find somewhere else.
It is a step in the right direction, but we mentioned it before, a lot of people are consciously not abiding by them because they've not been enforced. Yeah. So it's all well and good changing the regulations again to bring in new rules, change the parameters, but if they're not being enforced, then what's the point?
Which is crazy, because if you don't do it from the start, you know you're going to have to do it at some point and go back and do a retrofit.
People are putting in charges now and not putting the stuff in.
Yes, oh yeah.
At some point, somebody is going to get a big fine. We thought it was £10,000 a socket. That's, again, not clear. You've got somewhere with 4, 5, 6 chargers. You've got maybe £60,000 worth of fine. And all of a sudden, if this is a hotel, this hotel's got 4 other sites. We'll go and check those ones as well then. You can see how it quickly builds up.
I suppose the next step, which would be quite nice, is ANPR, so you can pull up reserve bays that's fully controlled by potentially a camera on the unit or a camera on the credit card terminal, wherever that may be, to avoid the need for downloading extra apps or swiping.
Idle fees as well.
Idle fees, overstay fees.
On the payment device, we've got front-facing cameras. We've already written an ANPR system for this toll bridge. We use a DVLA lookup, so we know what the fuel type is. On the bridge, we use it for weight, so they can issue fines for overweight vehicles. But on this, we've already been talking with back office providers where when a vehicle pulls up, We can actually read the number plate, check what fuel type it is. If it's an ICE vehicle, we can then just put a display on the screen telling them they've got literally 5 minutes to move out of the bay or a fine will be issued.
Is that in the top there?
Yeah, it is wide angle camera. So on a DC unit, this can look at 2 bays effectively, and it can also recognise a car pulling in from 4 metres away. It's a little early right now, I think.
I agree.
Having spoken to CPOs about it, they're all for bays being ICE. A parking charge notice, a PCN, it's quite a difficult process. Go back to the DVLA and get that information, but then there's a certain fee to pay, many thousands of pounds a year to be able to issue that PCN, and then you've got all the PCN management as well. Probably another 12 months away from PCNs being issued by CPOs for this, because as infrastructure grows and utilisation increases, then it becomes more of a revenue loss. And then they'll start to think, okay, PCNs is the way that we can recover some of that revenue.
Especially on DC bays.
Especially on DC.
Yeah.
It's high revenue.
Yeah.
Last bit of the jigsaw, Julian. I'm sat on the most comfortable foundation I've ever sat on. Another piece of the jigsaw to make it a little bit easier.
100%. Yeah. If you're going to retrofit, if you're going to go and put a payment pedestal in, what are you going to put it onto? It's a great solution that you can drop the EV-Cube foundation in. The Sigma post is designed to fit straight on top of it. So that gives you a complete system and that you can just install in existing EV charging infrastructure schemes.
Really good solution. Really good solution.
Our panel of experts believes there are no real barriers to achieving full compliance with the public charge point regulations on both new installs and existing sites. The real question now is what happens next. Is the market already self-correcting with the best operators setting the standard, or do we need to see the regulations properly enforced, including a few penalties to pull up those still delivering a poor customer experience? If you want to go deeper, check the link in the description to learn more about our panelists and the solutions they offer. And over to you. What would you like to see improved next in public charging? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
At some point, somebody is going to get a big fine.